I'm a 38-year-old single dad raising two kids, ages 10 and 12. Their mom passed away a few years back, and since then, it's just been the three of us. Life hasn't always been smooth, but I think we've done a solid job holding things together. My kids are incredible, kind, smart, and tough. They're the reason I keep pushing forward every day. About a year and a half ago, I met someone. Let's call her Emily. She's 34, and we got introduced through mutual friends at a backyard barbecue. Right off the bat, she seemed like everything I'd been searching for. She was outgoing, charismatic, and had this energy that naturally drew people in. We hit it off right away, and before long, we were dating. Emily made an effort to connect with my kids from the start, which I really appreciated. She'd take them out for ice cream or trips to the park, always making an effort to engage with them. My kids were polite, but I could tell they were holding back a bit. Maybe they were just cautious. They'd already been through so much, and I figured they didn't want to get attached too quickly. That seemed normal, though. These things take time, right? At first, everything felt perfect. Emily seemed to fully understand that my kids were my world and that we were a package deal. She'd often tell me how much she admired my parenting and how she wanted to be part of our lives. Having someone in my corner who genuinely seemed to get it felt amazing. As our relationship deepened, Emily and I started spending more time together, and she even began staying over at my place on occasion. My kids didn't seem particularly thrilled about it, but they weren't outright opposed either. I assumed we were all adjusting well to the idea of blending our lives. Looking back now, though, there were subtle signs, little things I probably should have paid more attention to. For instance, Emily would make casual comments about my house. Things like, "It's cozy, but maybe we could modernize it a bit." Or, "The kids' rooms are cute, but wouldn't it be fun to give them a makeover?" At the time, I didn't think much of it. I figured she just wanted to add her personal touch, and I was fine with that. She also talked about our future, how we could travel, build a life together, maybe even have a child of our own someday. In theory, I wasn't against any of it, but I always made it clear that my priority was my kids. She would smile and nod, but looking back, I'm not sure she truly understood. Then there was her family, specifically her brother Ryan. His name popped up in conversations from time to time, but never in a positive light. According to Emily, Ryan had lost his job, was struggling to stay afloat, and had been living with their parents. She spoke about him like he was a hopeless case, but at the same time, she also made it sound like it was everyone else's job to bail him out. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone has family members who need a little extra support now and then, and I figured it wasn't my business. But the more I got to know Emily, the clearer it became just how much of a mess Ryan really was. He couldn't hold down a job, made terrible choices, and seemed completely unwilling to change. Despite all that, I didn't see it as a deal breaker. My relationship with Emily was growing, and for the first time in a long while, I was seriously thinking about the future. I had been on my own for so long that the idea of finally having a partner again felt right. About a year into our relationship, I started considering marriage. Emily had been dropping hints for a while, showing me pictures of rings, bringing up wedding venues. It wasn't exactly subtle, and honestly, I was open to the idea. My kids were doing well in school, we had a stable routine, and I felt ready to take that next step. I planned a simple but meaningful proposal at the park where we had one of our first dates. Nothing flashy, just something sincere. That day, I was nervous but excited. As we walked, I told her how much she meant to me, pulled out the ring, and asked her to marry me. She said yes, practically buzzing with excitement, already diving into wedding plans and talking about our future together. In that moment, everything felt perfect. I had no idea how fast it was all about to fall apart. The first few weeks after the proposal were a blur of excitement. Emily threw herself into wedding planning, choosing color schemes, researching venues, obsessing over Pinterest boards like it was her full-time job. I could barely keep up between work, parenting, and everything else, so I let her take the reins. She seemed happy, and I didn't want to dim her enthusiasm. But then, little things started happening, small, seemingly harmless comments that, in hindsight, were anything but. She'd casually mention how the house needed a woman's touch, or say things like, I picture our future being a bit more polished. I wasn't sure what she meant by polished, but I brushed it off. Then the suggestions started coming, subtle at first. Wouldn't it be nice to clear out some of the kids' old stuff? You know, open up the space a bit. Or maybe we could move some of their things to the garage to keep the rooms tidier. Nothing major on its own, but over time, it felt like she was trying to erase pieces of the home we had built. I kept quiet, telling myself she just wanted to create a space that felt like hers, too. But then came the furniture issue. One Saturday, she showed up with a catalog and a grand plan to redecorate the living room. The thing is, I didn't see the need. The couch was comfortable, the coffee table was solid, and the kids' bean-bag chairs in the corner were non-negotiable. She went on about how she wanted the space to feel more adult and less chaotic. I had to bite my tongue. This was our home, not some magazine spread. The first real clash happened when she suggested turning the spare room, our makeshift office, and the kids' art space into a guest room. She called it a compromise, claiming the kids could still use it occasionally. But that room was more than just a space. It was where my kids created, where I worked late at night. It was one of the few parts of the house that truly felt like ours. I told her we weren't changing it. She didn't argue, but I could see the irritation in her expression. She muttered something about how we'd eventually have to make room for everyone, and I let it go. That's when Ryan started coming up more often. Emily mentioned how her parents were pushing her to help him, how it was weighing on her. Then the real bomb dropped. She suggested letting him move in after the wedding. I shut that down immediately. My kids' home wasn't up for grabs. But then, I noticed something else. Emily started interacting with my kids differently, asking them about their schedule, their routines. It seemed harmless until one day my son asked me, Dad, what's boarding school? The second he said it, alarm bells went off. When I confronted Emily, she laughed it off, claiming she was just discussing how great the programs were. I wasn't buying it. And then, one night, she sat me down. We need to talk, she said, her voice serious. Then she laid it all out. She thought we should send my kids to boarding school. Why? So Ryan could move in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to send my kids away so your unemployed brother can have a room in their house? I asked, anger rising. She sighed, frustrated. Jack is family. No, I said, my voice firm. My family is upstairs, where they belong. And in that moment, I knew this engagement wasn't going to last. You can't just walk in here and decide that my kids' lives matter less than your brother's comfort. My voice was sharp, frustration boiling over. That struck a nerve. Her expression shifted instantly, the defensiveness fading into something colder, more hostile. You're acting like I'm trying to hurt them, she snapped, her voice tight with irritation. I'm not. I'm trying to build a life where we all have space to breathe, but you're so stuck in your ways that you can't see how good this could be for everyone. This isn't about what's good for everyone, I shot back. This is about you trying to shove my kids out of their own home to make room for Ryan. And I'll tell you right now That's never going to happen. Not now, not ever. She folded her arms and took a step back, inhaling sharply before forcing a calm but clipped tone. Fine, she said, her words deliberate. If you're not even willing to consider this, then maybe we need to rethink everything. I stood up too, meeting her gaze head on. What exactly does that mean? It means, she said slowly, like she was daring me to challenge her, that if you can't put my family first for once, then maybe this isn't going to work. I'm not going to marry someone who refuses to respect my family. I stared at her, absolutely floored. Respect? You want to talk about respect? What about respecting my kids? My family? She didn't flinch. This is your choice, she said, doubling down. Either you choose me, or you choose your kids. But I'm not settling for anything less. And just like that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. For weeks, I had felt something was off, but this was something else entirely. For the first time since proposing, I started to wonder if I had made a massive mistake. The tension between us had been brewing for a while, and every time Ryan came up in conversation, it felt like we were teetering on the edge of another fight. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, Ryan had the nerve to show up unannounced. The sheer audacity of it was beyond comprehension. It was a Saturday morning, and I was in the kitchen making breakfast while the kids lounged in the living room, watching cartoons. Then came a knock at the door. Not a light tap. A heavy, deliberate series of knocks, the kind that let you know the person on the other side had no intention of leaving. I sighed, assuming it was a delivery or maybe someone selling something. But when the knocking didn't stop, I walked over, already annoyed. Opening the door, I found Ryan standing there, the usual smug grin plastered across his face, like he was just swinging by a buddy's place instead of barging into a situation where he was absolutely not welcome. Hey, man, he said with an easy nod. Thought I'd drop by. Got a minute? I blinked, trying to process why he was even here. Emily didn't mention you were coming, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Ryan shrugged like it was no big deal. Didn't think I needed an invitation. She told me you guys were still sorting out the details about me moving in, so I figured I'd come by, check the place out. I stared at him, my patience thinning by the second. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said, trying to keep my voice level. We haven't agreed on anything about you moving in. Ryan let out a laugh, like I had just told him a joke. Come on, man. Emily said it was pretty much a done deal, just a matter of working out logistics. Before I could say another word, he stepped right past me, pushing his way inside like he owned the place. I turned, watching as he waltzed into my living room, scanning the space like he was evaluating a potential apartment. My kid sat frozen on the couch, eyes wide with confusion. My older son shot me a look that said everything I was already feeling. What's he doing here? Nice place, Ryan said, making himself comfortable as he sprawled out on my couch, arms stretched across the backrest like he was settling in for a long stay. I clenched my jaw, taking a deep breath. Ryan, this isn't a good time. You should have called before coming over. Before he could respond, Emily walked through the front door. She paused for half a second when she saw him, then flashed a bright, over-enthusiastic smile. Oh, Ryan, I wasn't expecting you this early. Early? I turned to her, my patience gone. Emily waved her hand dismissively. Must have slipped my mind to mention it. No harm, no foul, right? I glanced at my kids and told them to head upstairs. Once they were out of earshot, I turned back to Emily and Ryan, my tone cold. What is going on? I asked, arms crossed. Ryan leaned back on the couch, looking completely unbothered. He said he's here to check out the house because you two have been talking about him moving in, I said, watching Emily's reaction. Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. Honey, she said, stepping closer, I was just trying to help. Ryan's in a tough spot, and I thought that if he could see how we could make it work, maybe you'd be more open to the idea. I took a slow breath, my patience razor thin. We've already talked about this, I said firmly. I told you I wasn't comfortable with it. Ryan, still lounging on my couch like he owned the place, finally spoke up. Relax, man. It's not like I'm asking for much. Just a place to crash and some space to breathe. You wouldn't even notice I was here. I turned to him, my tone ice cold. This isn't your decision to make, Ryan. And it's not happening. Ryan got up, grabbing his jacket. All right. No need to get all bent out of shape. I'll leave you two to figure it out. He muttered something under his breath as he walked out. The second the door closed, I turned to Emily. What the hell was that? What do you mean? She shot back, crossing her arms. Ryan's my family, and I'm just trying to help him. Am I the bad guy for that? My voice rose. You've been making decisions behind my back about my house, my kids, my family. And you think that's okay? Emily's jaw tightened. You're being impossible. Ryan is family, and families help each other out. Why can't you understand that? Because this isn't just about Ryan. I snapped. This is about you trying to push my kids out of their home to make room for him. They've been through enough, and I'm not appending their lives to make things easier for you or your brother. Her face twisted with frustration. You are so stubborn. She spat. Do you even care how hard this is for me? I'm trying to build a future with you, and you're too busy clinging to your perfect little world to see it. This perfect little world is my kids' lives. I shot back. And I'm not going to apologize for protecting it. If you can't understand that, then maybe you're not ready to be a part of this family. Her expression hardened, and in that moment, I knew what she was about to say. Fine, she said, her voice cold. If you're not willing to compromise, then maybe we need to rethink all of this. I stood there, letting her words settle before taking a deep breath. Then I met her gaze. You're right, I said. We do need to rethink this. And I've already made my decision. Her face flickered with shock, then anger. What's that supposed to mean? It means I choose my kids, I said firmly. They are my priority, always. If you can't accept that, then we don't have a future together. The silence was deafening. Finally, she scoffed, spun on her heel, and walked out the door. And just like that, it was over.